Hey guys, JJ here with Well-Rounded Living, and today I want to go over creating a budget. It's a very important financial tool that everyone should have, and it's something that I think is underrated in a lot of families. I was very surprised years ago to find that a lot of people I knew didn't have a family budget. They didn't really know how much money they made and where it went. I honestly cannot fathom living that way. You have to know how much you make and how much you spend on the standard costs that you have each month in order to know what you can afford. So if you see a new toy, can you afford that? Can you afford the new iPad? Well, if you don't know how much money you have, then you can't answer that question. So if you have bought my book, then chapter 4 right here is titled Spend Less Than You Earn. And in there I go over, one of the very first things I go over actually, is creating a budget. And there is a form in here that you can use to create a budget. But I am also going to put a link in the box below to an online Excel document that you can download to get started with creating your budget. Also, all of the forms that are in my book, in the case that you have purchased it, are in the back, so you can tear those out, make copies of them. There's an entire forms and formulas section back there, and use them to your heart's content. So once you have the spreadsheet or you've printed out that document, it's basically set up with two columns. One column is all of the expenses that you have. The other column is how much each of those are. Then down at the bottom, there is a total. Now, if you download the Excel document, the total will happen automatically. And I have also included a little extra section on the right-hand side that will allow you to put in your income. Now, to help you get started, and this is why I think it's important to start with something someone else has already created, I put in all of the most common expenses you may come across. Now, that's going to include things like your mortgage, your car payment, your food, your electric bill, your phone bill, your cell phone bill, your internet bill, your cable bill. And it's funny because when you start rattling these off, you realize just how many bills the average American has. There are quite a few. With just a quick thought, it's not obvious how many of those bills you have. So by documenting them, you can come up with them over a period of time. Let's say each time you pay a bill, you go ahead and write it down in this document. So that way, after you've done this for a month, you'll know every single bill that comes in, as well as what they are on average. Now, some of these bills are going to be easy. If you have a mortgage or a car payment or some other form of payment, it's going to be the same every single month. For bills like your electric bill, that's probably going to vary a lot. Now, here in Texas, it gets very hot in the summers, but not that cold in the winters. So for most people, your August electric bill is really, really high, whereas your January electric bill is really, really low. So for those, you have to come up with an average. At least that's what I do. Now, if you are truly living paycheck to paycheck and any amount over that is going to cause problems for you, you will want to be sure to estimate on the very highest possible end, because when that August bill comes in, you want to make sure you've planned for it and you can pay for it. But if you're not quite that tight on money and you can afford a little wiggle room here and there, then it's easier to come up with just an average and use that every month. So in winter months you will be below average, in summer months you will be above average, but on average you will be exactly where you expect to be. Now, I've also included some others that you might not think about. And these are going to vary from person to person, but there are some that are very important. For example, how much do you spend on gas? Well, if you're commuting to work every day and gas prices are going up, you need to make sure you have that budgeted in, because back when I was a kid, you didn't really need to budget for gas. It was so cheap, you could just go for a long drive and it wouldn't really matter. But these days, the cost of gas in my family can be $200 to $400 a month, depending on what we're doing. So obviously, that's a lot. Food is another really big item that a lot of people don't really think about because it's not a standard bill. But in food, you will need to include every time you go out to eat, every time you go to the grocery store to buy food, and you'll need to add that up and divvy it out and see how much it costs to eat. And you may very well be surprised at that. We spend, as just average Americans, a whole lot of money on just eating. We don't have to, and thankfully there are plenty of ways to cut back on that area. Just cooking at home is one, obviously. But it's important to know how much you're spending on that. Now, on top of that, include other items like cigarettes. If you smoke, it's important to know how much that habit is costing you. If you tend to spend money on a little toy every time you go to the store, let's say you do weekly grocery shopping and you take your kids with you, and every time you go you end up getting them a little $5 toy. And let's say you have 2 kids. That's $10 a week, $40 a month. You need to make sure those expenses are accounted for. Now, if you've seen my video on moderation, you know that doing anything to an extreme is a bad idea. Budgeting to an extreme also is a bad idea. So what I suggest you do is take 2 to 4 weeks and write down every single expense you have. If you put 50 cents in a vending machine, write it down. But only do that for the first 2 to 4 weeks, however long you can stand to do it for. Beyond that, what I suggest you do is come up with an average, and let's call it miscellaneous or spending money, and put that as a single line item on your spreadsheet. So you will have mortgage, electric bill, phone bill, car payment, insurance payment, medical insurance payment, all of those things, and then down at the bottom you will have, let's call it flexible spending. Now, what this summary section is going to do for you is it's going to allow you to budget easier. So when you're looking at all of your expenses line after line, you don't have to know that every month I spend 50 cents at the vending machine on, every Tuesday, something like that. And it adds up to this much, and I need to make sure that I don't do that this time. But just by having that average of, I typically go out and buy a little toy for my kids. I typically go to the vending machine about this much. I typically buy myself a book once a month, something like that. And all of those add up to $100 a month, $200 a month, whatever the number is. That's going to simplify your budget and give you a little bit of peace of mind, because it can be very stressful to try to track every single thing you do. Now, with that said, one thing I want to make sure you do is when you're filling out this spreadsheet, and honestly this is just a good habit to have for every aspect of your life, always overestimate expenses and underestimate income. It is much better to have more money left at the end of the month than you were expecting than to have a shortfall. So if you know your paycheck is $500 a month, $500 a week, whatever it is you make, and you know your bills are somewhere around $400 a month, $400 a week, estimate $450, just to be on the safe side. That way, if something comes in a little high, you spend a little extra on something, that it's still going to fall within your expected range and not cause a problem. Once you have everything documented, you know how much you spend, you know how much you make. Go ahead and take the amount you spend minus the amount you make, and then see what that resulting number is. Is it a positive or a negative number? If it's a positive number, that means you make more than you earn. Congratulations, that's a great start. That's where everyone needs to be. If it's a negative number, that means you're spending more money than you make. And in that case, you're going to have to take some kind of action. And I have a big section of my book dedicated to this, so if you're interested in details, pick it up, read it, let me know what you think. I will probably also do other videos on how to help if you have a shortfall and you are spending more than you earn on a regular basis. But for starters, having this budget is going to let you know where you are right now. From that baseline starting point, you can then improve. Now, improving can be things like cutting out some of those items in your budget that you didn't realize were expenses. Maybe you have a recurring gym membership that you never use. You could cancel that. But you're able to see them all listed out line by line. So it's obvious where all of your hard-earned money is going, and decisions can be made on how to proceed in the future. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions that I can help you with. Otherwise, check us out at wellroundedliving.com, follow us on Facebook, or subscribe right here on YouTube, and I will see you again soon.